Live from FlightSimCon 2015 and Air Daily XI-Net, I am here with Scott and Jake from A2A Simulations. And I don't think anyone would disagree when I say that your products are by far the best products in their product range than anyone else. You've got your military brand of products, you have your aircraft factory, but the best, of course, is the AccuSim and AccuFeel line of products. My first question for you, Scott, is you're a real-world aviator. You have your own, is it the C-182?
Comanche 250.
Is that what you have at home?
Yeah, 1959 Comanche 250. That's our latest existing product.
And that's what was just released yesterday, is that correct?
We announced it yesterday. We'll be releasing it hopefully next week.
Oh, not released yet, but it is here. So luckily, if any of you were here, it's already here on display. So my question for you, Scott, is how did you go from obviously a real-world aviator and a fan of flight simulation to deciding that you're actually going to create the world's most realistic aircraft for flight simulation?
I think it started probably, 30 years ago probably,
Wow.
49. I think it started back the first flight sims. There's always something I wasn't happy with. And I always was under the impression that eventually somebody would get it right, where I'd be happy. And about 10 years went by where I just kept seeing people sort of treading water, hitting the mark. Oh, it's like this person would hit this, but they'd lose on the physics. This person would get the graphics, and they'd lose on sound or something. And I thought, oh, well, at some point somebody's going to come out and put all the pieces together and put out a great sim. But it didn't happen. So that's why we started the business. It really was for a personal need to fly a simulator online. Even though I was flying the real, it doesn't really take the need away to fly a simulator. They both go hand in hand, and I absolutely love flying flight simulators.
Now, did you actually build those first models when you made this decision? Did you actually build these yourself, or did you get like a collaborative group of guys together?
Collaborative group. We brought a whole group of enthusiasts together. It was the first time we put together over 10 years ago, a product called Firepower. And it was putting a group of people who just love to do, this is all about passion. I mean, we're in an air museum. Everyone who comes here shares some sort of passion for it.
Absolutely.
And this really belongs in an air museum.
Absolutely.
So, I mean, he's got the bug. My son has the passion bug.
Absolutely. You're lucky, by the way. Tell me, Jake, what's your involvement with A2A and your whole end of things?
With A2A, I'm typically just a general purpose everything, from beta testing to graphic work to helping out with videos and recording and flight tests.
And how has growing up with your dad helped your real-world aviation career?
Well, when you're 12 and your dad gets an airplane, it kind of really does help. For instance, like I was the kid at baseball who always looked up at the sky when the airplane goes by, missing a lot of catches and stuff.
Yeah, that was the reason.
Now let's talk really quickly about AccuSim and AccuFeel, because AccuSim and AccuFeel was not exactly a part of A2A in the very beginning, right? That was something that you developed over time.
Yeah, when we made our first AccuSim aircraft, we realized that this is a long process that can't be rushed. We wish we could AccuSim every aircraft. We wish we could.
I wish that too, by the way.
Yeah, we all wish that. So we worked very hard to streamline. And every time we make a new AccuSim plane, we want to improve the process. And we've actually, I'm not going to say decreased the time, but we haven't increased the time. So we've continued to increase the quality, maybe slightly decrease the time. So AccuFeel was a way to bring what we call a touch of AccuSim, make the sound engine, and attach it to some of the physics in FSX for all aircraft, and then maybe bring a little bit of physics that we could, anything we could do on a global basis, and allow people to adjust the settings as they see fit for AccuFeel. That's what that brought people. AccuFeel is very well, it was it's probably our second best-selling product. So it's very successful.
I'm going to be honest with you here, Scott. When you first announced the C-172 project, and I think that was probably about 2 years ago, my first thought was, oh my God, here we go with another 172. I've got like 5 other 172s plus freeware from all these different developers. A2A, they make all the cool military aircraft and the Mustang. Why bother with a 172?
Right.
The minute I first got it, I realized right off the bat, well, why did you decide the 172?
Well, it was about well, I'm not sure exactly how it was. 3 years ago, when I purchased the Comanche, which brought me back into general aviation on a weekly basis, flying one to two times a week, continually living with an airplane, maintaining it. And of course, I've got my Comanche, and friends have 172s, friends have Cherokees, Moonies, Bonanzas, all sorts of planes. And it was right in front of me. So rather than going out to airports and visiting an A26 or a P-51, my daily life was around these general aviation planes. And I started really falling in love with them. That's really what happened. And then I figured if we're going to start doing GA, we need to start with the 172.
Absolutely.
And that's where that came from. And we needed to do the 172 and the Cherokee together in such a way that people can compare how those two general aviation titans compete.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
And that was the dream.
Now, the great thing about AccuSim and AccuField, I do a lot of online flying with a lot of friends, and usually what I find is whenever we decide we're going to do something GA, half the team always takes something with A2A on it. And we might fly around the Pacific Northwest. Well, actually, it depends on the group.
I am joking,
but a lot of people still stick with other aircraft that they wish were A2A, but you guys just don't develop, especially when it comes to twin engine. But we'll get to that in a second. But one of the things I find is if we're going to hit like 10 or 15 airports along the way, there's always somebody that says, wait a minute, something's wrong with my performance. I've got to go through my checklist again. Oh, I realize I didn't change my spark plugs. I haven't had one guy tell me the best thing I love about A2A and AccuSim is every time I select the aircraft, I get it in the same crappy state that I left it. So essentially what you've created is a feel where someone actually feels like they own the aircraft.
Yeah.
With anything else, you fly it, you put it away, you get it back, it's brand new, you fly it again. But if you've been flying it all week, or all month and you haven't done any maintenance on it, by the time you pull it back up again, you realize, oh my gosh, I need to do this, I need to do that, I need to go in and fix this. It's easy to hit a button and fix everything at once, or you go in and fix little things as needed, but finally, if you are the ones that have created something where everyone can feel like, I really own it, I know how to fly it. For me, sometimes I get lazy and I want to go fly, and it's hard to touch those other 172s now, and I don't. And I jump in there and I say, okay, I'm going to do this, and I start it and it won't start. And that's just A2A for you, and that's what makes you guys so great. You just released the Comanche yesterday. How was that been received? Oh no, you haven't released it yet, but you've reviewed it yesterday.
It's actually a little more excitement than I expected. I love the Comanche. Love it. That's why I own it. And after 3 years of flying it, I love the plane, and I can go on and say all the reasons why. I hope I spell it out in that video that I put out. So, yeah, the excitement though, it's not a well-known plane. It's not as well-known as a Bonanza.
Right.
So I thought people would be a little disappointed, but
It's different.
no, I'm seeing some really good excitement. So
That's great.
Early signs are really good.
Let's talk about the future of A2A simulations. Anything you can talk about what you guys are planning down the line for the future?
You want to tell them a little bit? Just project your voice to the right.
Well, we obviously we announced that the T6 is now in active development, and we're still getting connections to get the availability to test fly the T6, and then down the line, hopefully T33. The Seminole is probably going to happen.
I love the Seminole. It's one of my favorites.
We don't necessarily know when it's going to be, but it's going to be sometime sooner than later, unless a different project pops up, which sometimes happens like the Comanche.
So multi-engine GA aircraft definitely in the pipeline.
Yeah, we have to take things one step at a time. Obviously, the T6 is going to be a big step for us, but we're sort of in a different place now. When we did the 172, or starting with the 172, in that 17 test flights in 8 months of flight testing, a real 170, one of 3 172Rs, gave us the AccuSim 172,
Which is there now.
17 test flights. I wasn't expecting to fly this thing 17 times. When I went into it, I was expecting a couple test flights.
How many hours is that, by the way? Jalagi?
I don't
Had to been a lot, though.
I might have 25 hours, so I'm not sure, but I don't know about that. But the other 172, 172P, which we didn't do. But so we've set the sort of standard, and everybody knows the 172. So we've got that down. Did the same for Cherokee, and now we're going to go into the T6. I can't just willy-nilly jump into the T6 and fly it for a couple hours and think I'm going to accuracy. I have to go into a T6 with the intent of getting completely checked out in it, very, very comfortable in that plane. I know the quirks. I don't know the T6 right now as we're talking, but I have to educate myself. That's going to mean flying it as much as possible, and that's going to mean flying it with some of the most experienced T6 pilots out there. We have some really good pilots, thanks to Dudley Henriquez, who is just a great source for A2A. We can't thank Dudley enough. He set us up with some seriously good pilots, and we intend to take full advantage and fly with these guys, pick their brains, and learn as much about this plane. That's the excitement of making planes.
Absolutely.
It's learning stuff.
Absolutely.
And like you look at that Corsair, we did a Corsair, we did an Accusim. Now, if we were to Accusim a Corsair, it would be a long road. And by the end of that road, I expect to be, I'm not going to say an expert, but pretty damn close.
Right. Absolutely. And by the way, the feedback that I've seen on the T6 announcement so far has been really huge. A lot of people looking forward to that. Last question. Do you think in the future we might ever see an A2A Accusim product with a jet engine or a turbofan? You're on the spotlight.
He's more excited than anybody about this one. Jet engine. Jet.
T-33.
Yeah. Yes, Jake is going to get, he does not want to log any time in his logbook until he gets some stick time in a T-33.
Wow,
So
that's
I
huge.
can say my first my first flight actually logged was like 30 minutes or an hour in the T-33, which is just huge.
So the whole development team is essentially going to be coming to you to pick your brain on your expertise and experience on that, then, aren't they?
We don't have the deep pockets to have flying the T-33 that much, but we will. We have to fly the T. We talk about the T6, T-33. We have to fly that a lot, and just gas alone is
Right, absolutely.
thousands of dollars.
Well, I certainly hope with all the products that you currently have, plus everything that you're planning to release, that the income will by far supplement the future projects.
It is. A2A has been growing for the last 7 years, no less than 20% per year, every year. So if you bring back 7 years ago, you've been at 20%, 20%, 20% on that, and 1 year we doubled in size, and so we have been more than 20%, so maybe like 25, 28, 26, but it's always been that consistent growth, and we have felt confident about Flight Simulator all this time. Everyone is screaming doom and gloom, not us. We're growing.
Absolutely.
And, I'm very proud of what we've achieved.
Absolutely.
I'm very excited about what you're doing as well.
Well, thank you very much. Your booth has been one of the busiest here, and I love how you're just working with everyone, showing them all the instrumentation, and it's hard to pull you away, so I want to thank you so much to both of you, Jake and Scott, for making the time for us. Absolutely.
A lot of people, they are commenting on our Facebook and on the forums, when's the F104 coming out? The thing is, we were developing the F4 and the F104, and the supersonic flight and the complex systems in these early 70s aircraft are just too much for us. So,
well, no one says it's too much for us. We could do it, but we'd be bankrupt if we did it right now.
Yes, so when we did the T-33, it opens up to a new area, and we hope in the future to continue those projects.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, were you able to get access to these aircraft?
Yeah,
or is that part of one of the constraints?
No, we have access to 104s and also Phantom. No. It wasn't until we're looking at the 104, and I started researching it years ago, and I started looking at these manuals and these books and these theory books, and I realized, why are these books thicker than the books that I was researching for piston engines? Because a jet engine is simpler than a piston. And then I realized most of the book was about supersonic flight. And then I started getting into supersonic flight, and I realized this is a very big subject. Now, I'm not going to sit here and stop the press and disappear for a year and study supersonic flight.
Right.
That's not the way you run a business. we have to make a jet engine. I thought the F-104 was that jet engine. It's not, because the F-104 has some advanced systems that control RPM. And I don't want the first jet engine to have any controls between my throttle and that engine.
Right.
I don't want that to be the first one. I want the first one to be as raw as it can be, like our P40.
Exactly.
Raw. You can overpower the P40. You can run it way too high.
Right.
It doesn't have
I've done that, by
manifold
the way.
pressure. Yeah, and that's the way you learn. So the T-33, from what I understand, is an absolute pussycat to fly. It's easy to fly. Takes a long time to spool up. So I really want that first experience. So we're on this T-33. That's like we're starting flight testing this month with the T-33. It's a very long ball with that. Once the T-33 is done, now we can talk F-104, but not 1 minute before. I don't want to think about it. I want to
That was very good. Thanks for bringing that up, by the way. Well, you guys are doing terrific work. I'm a huge fan of everything that you guys are doing. Congratulations to you, by the way. You have a long career ahead of you in both flying and flight simulation design, so we're going to be watching you very closely. Thank you so much, Scott.
Thank you.
Congratulations on the announcement yesterday. Thanks both. All right?